And we say hello and welcome in with Jonathan Jones. I'm Eric Casillas, our two-time Super Bowl champion, Bryant McFadden. B-Mac, did the team that played better tonight, was that the team that won the game?
No question, EK. Yes. Washington, in my opinion, played better because they didn't have the amount of mistakes the New York Football Giants had. The Giants just shot themselves in the foot over and over and over again, not capitalizing on opportunities Washington provided them. And because of that, they lost a huge ball game tonight. So hats off to Washington on both sides of the football. Taylor Heinicke played a real good ball game. Scary Terry showed up big time defensively. They had their issues, especially the front, but they were able to put pressure on Daniel Jones here or there. I would like to see them be more of a dominant unit because I believe they have the personnel to do so, but they did sack him quite a few times. This was an entertaining ball game, guys. You know, it really exceeded my expectations. When you talk about points on the scoreboard, you talk about an up and down affair. But yes, the better team won the ball game tonight.
You're not going to win the game with field goals, and that's just it. And B-Mac touched on any number of important topics, but really, you know, the New York Giants went 1 for 3 in the red zone, and that's going to lose you games. They were basically identical there on third down, but B-Mac talked about the mistakes. The Darius Slayton drop pass in the end zone. Maybe you say that James Bradbury interception sort of negates that out, gives you the opportunity to win the football game. But I'm going to tell you what, Joe Judge cannot, as a former special teams coach, be pleased with Dexter Lawrence jumping right there on the missed kick and then having the game won on a missed kick and then giving life yet again because of that mistake. Such a disciplined team, and that's what he's been trying to instill in this team for the past year and a half, 2 years that he's been at the helm with the New York Giants. But they had more penalties than the Washington football team, had more mistakes than the Washington football team. And frankly, in the first half, when he should have been going for it on fourth down and kicked a field goal and then wouldn't put Graham Gano, a guy who's missed one field goal in like 2 years. He didn't put him out there to try a 55-yarder in the first half, but tried him to put a 55-yarder in the second half, and he drained it. Would have been good from 60. Those are mistakes, and those are undisciplined errors. Those are unforced errors that Joe Judge and his team made tonight. The better team won.
If you're a Giant fan, I guess the response, and I want to flush this out, you know, playing devil's advocate, we scored 29 points, and we didn't have any turnovers. That's got to be good enough, no?
Normally it would, especially with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. You tell me that we're going to score 29 points and Daniel Jones isn't going to turn the football over. I say that's probably good enough. Here's the thing, though. Everyone, I think, nationally was underrating Taylor Heinicke. And the Washington football team was telling you, we believe in Taylor Heinicke. And that's...
They put the game in his hands, that's for sure.
They wanted to put the game in his hands.
They did.
They had the confidence in him. And I think a lot of folks, myself included, thought that Chase Young was being a little hyperbolic where he was talking about just how great Taylor Heinicke was. But this dude is a confident guy. And every time they got punched in the mouth, they came back and punched the Giants right back in the mouth. And so in those sort of heavyweight fights, you cannot make the mistakes that the New York Giants did. They did because they're an undisciplined team. And I guess that all those wind sprints and dog cussing out there at all the practices didn't help Joe Judge's team at all.
Taylor Heinicke, think of it this way. They ran 68 offensive plays, did Washington. 50 of them were either Heinicke throwing it or running it. 18 were not. So they clearly decided he was going to be good enough to win the game, and his team put up 30. Although he did have a key turnover late in the game, he was going to be the GOAT if they missed that field goal, but instead he becomes one of the heroes. We heard a lot about the Washington D coming into this year. B-Mac, you're a defensive guy, won a couple of Super Bowls. The Washington D through 2 weeks, I mean, are they a little overrated or are they just off to a bad start? I mean, they got really whipped by the Chargers opening week, and they just gave up 29 points and didn't get a turnover against Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I'm not going to say they're overrated. You know what I mean? They have talented players on the front, you know, particularly speaking, but they just haven't really been able to get the job done. You know, sometimes when you read the newspaper clippings and you see how good everyone is talking about you and how elite they believe you are, you start to believe some of that. And you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. They got to put their foot right back on the gas. But I can tell you this much, EK, in 2 ball games defensively, they haven't really put forth their best effort. But they could easily be 2-0 right now. They can still be 2-0. That's the ironic part about Washington. They lost to the Chargers, but remember, it was costly mistakes, fumbles that led to that huge loss to Los Angeles, to the Chargers. And then tonight, didn't put forth their best effort, but they were able to win this ball game. So being able to win ball games without your most dominant unit dominating definitely is something to really be happy about, because eventually they're going to hit that light switch. And when they hit that light switch, look out. But this was a much needed win for Washington, because the team that lost this ball game, I don't want to say the season is over, but it's going to be hard trying to climb from the bottom of that bucket.
Let me follow up on that, because that's where I was going to go next. Like, there are losses and there are losses. I know they all count the same in the standings, but they don't all feel the same. How do you get up off the mat from this one if you're the Giants? I mean, now you're 0-2 for the 5th straight year. You could have had this game. And this was a division game on the road against the one team that you seem to beat. Your quarterback played well. You didn't turn it over. You scored 29 points. And what ends up happening? You're now 0-2. And I know you have Atlanta coming up, but you got a bunch of Tampa Bays and Kansas Cities and at Dallases and Rams coming up. How do you get up off the mat if you're the Giants here?
It's going to be hard. One thing I know about good teams, you know what I mean? One thing I know about above average teams, they win the ball games they're supposed to win. The Giants, they're not there yet. Dick LeBeau used to tell us all the time, a bad team will find a way to lose a ball game. The Giants, they found many ways to lose this ball game. Heineke tried to bail them out. Bradbury, an outstanding interception, gave the Giants life. Guess what the Giants do? They found a way to screw it up. Lawrence, you can't jump offside. JJ hit on that. You cannot jump offsides. So a bad team will find many ways to lose a ball game. And the Giants, right now, they're a bad team. And you talking about trying to get off the canvas. Listen, I mean, the Falcons, we don't believe they have much to offer right now. But right now, playing against the Giants, you don't believe the Giants have much to offer. So if they don't beat the Falcons, guys, they have the Saints, they have the Cowboys, they have the Rams, they have the Panthers, they have the Chiefs, they have the Raiders. I mean, you're talking about in the early part of October, the season could be over.
If you're a Giant fan and you watch Saquon Barkley tonight, I mean, it's not the headline, it's not the first paragraph, it's not the second paragraph, but after we've sort of unpacked the game and given Washington credit and talked about the Giant mistakes and gave Daniel Jones some credit and certainly gave Taylor Heineke some credit, what about Barkley that you saw tonight? Had a 41-yard run, and then not much else. At times look great, times look a little tentative. What'd you see with Barkley?
The 41-yard run was huge.
Yep.
And that's what we talked about in the pregame. That's something that Saquon Barkley actually wrote down in his notes this week, that he needed to make that big play. That's what he really wanted. He went out there against the Denver Broncos, got tackled a little bit for the first time in nearly a year. He needed that. He believed in himself. He believed that his body was there. He needed to show it to himself. That run did it. And yeah, he had 12 other rushes. He had 57 yards. He didn't have all that much success out there outside of that long run. He got stuffed 4 times, but he also had, probably 3 other successful runs, I would say. The thing that I would be concerned about, EK, I was a little concerned, if I'm a Giants fan, with what Patrick Graham was doing with the defense, because they should have been blitzing more. And I was not I didn't like that Taylor Heineke was blitzed just 10.6% of the time. This is a guy who is starting in his second career NFL game. This is an unproven guy, a confident guy. All those things that I've talked about, all the superlatives, all those are fine. But the fact is, you got to send more guys. What's up with the 3 and the 4-man rushes, especially in a game that we're talking about right now? You got to have it. I know you don't want to get hit with the big play, but you got to send guys more than once every 10 defensive snaps. I was very curious about the sort of scheme that Patrick Graham had, a guy who I think was on a short list for a lot of teams as a potential head coaching candidate, now back to the drawing board at 0-2.
And they're calling that a 46-yard run. So Barkley, 146-yard run the rest of the night, 12 carries, 11 yards. Less than a yard a carry the rest of the night. You played defense. You'd had to tackle these guys for a living for a while, or certainly at least try. What'd you see with Barkley tonight, B-Mac?
He's running a bit, bit timid a little bit. You know what I mean? Big time run on the long one you guys hit on. But outside of that, I'm not really seeing an aggressive runner. Saquon Barkley is a big guy. You know what I mean? He's extremely powerful. But I need to see him run based on how he looks. Like Antonio Gibson lowered the boom. That last drive that led to the field goal attempt, I mean, he was bringing the power with him. And now what I'm seeing from Saquon also too, he's not making people miss. You know what I mean? He's never been known to be a one-cut guy. He had a little bit of wiggle when need be. We're not really seeing that. So I'm not, ready to just say he's not the same guy that he was before the injury, because granted, it's going to take some time for him to kind of get in the sync of things. But, when you talk about just your God-given ability, you're strong, you're fast, you're quick. When you're playing against a guy who looks like Saquon Barkley, especially if you're in the secondary, you should really think twice about running up on him and try to hit him. And now when you look at secondary guys, Landon Collins was just coming. I mean, all these guys in the secondary were coming. Not to mention not making people miss, but it's going to take some time. But I can tell you this much, Saquon didn't have the Saquon Barkley-like ball game. They still should have won this game.
All right, last question time around. Let's make it sort of a global big picture, and let's talk about the winners here. Washington, where's their place in the NFC? Where's their place in the NFC East at 1-1 and in a division where the only other team with a W is Philly? B-Mac.
Well, right now, my pick to win the NFC East in the beginning of the season was Washington, based on how well the defense played, and of course, just having more than a serviceable guy at the quarterback position. Ryan Fitzpatrick is no longer there because of injury. The defense, they're not looking like the defense I thought they would look. Upside, Taylor Heineke can play football, but the jury is still out on the rest of the division. Cowboys look real good in a loss to Tampa, so I think it's wide open. But one thing I can say about the NFC East, it's not wide open for the New York Football Giants. They're fighting for dead last in this division. That's one thing I can say. In 2 weeks of play, guys, I don't know exactly who will win, who will be 1, 2, and 3, but I know who will be 4. Unfortunately, it's the New York Giants.
Man. And, I agree with you, B-Mac. I had the Washington football team as winning the NFC East. I almost kind of wanted to go back on that a week ago tonight when we saw what Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were doing even without a running game. But I'm sticking with the Washington football team here, winning the NFC East. It's going to be tough sledding here in the first few weeks of the season. I think that they obviously won this game. They have the Bills coming up, and Ron Rivera noted, hey, we're going up to Buffalo next week. We can't start 0-2. We're going to be dead in the water if we start 0-2. Then we're going to Buffalo. Then he didn't say it, but maybe that's 0-3. Then they have the Falcons after that. So they're going to come out of September 2-2. And then they have a tough slate ahead before they hit the bye week. But the NFC East, of course, is going to be decided in December going into January. And you look at the Washington football team schedule, and it's Dallas, Philly, and then finally they finish up in week 18 with the New York Giants there in MetLife. So that's where the NFC East is going to be won. It's going to be all about who is the healthiest, who's playing well in mid-December going into the holidays. But I think without question, Taylor Heineke is good enough to keep this team afloat. That's beyond question. And frankly, if Ryan Fitzpatrick takes 6, 7, 8 weeks to come back from that hip that he's not going to have surgery on, according to reports, it's very possible. If we continue to see Taylor Heineke play the way that he has in the wild card game, and then again on Sunday, and then again tonight, that he holds on to this job, and that Ryan Fitzpatrick yet again loses his starting quarterback job to a young guy. It's possible. So I love the way that Taylor Heineke's playing. I love the way that this Washington football team is going to get it together, I believe, especially on defense, and they're still my favorite in the division.
Think about how different we would feel right now if DeMarcus Lawrence doesn't jump offside 2 inches. Be totally disciplined. All right, well done, gentlemen. Certainly appreciate it. Great talk. Washington getting it done. They go to 1-1. There you go. First win in the league. Third career start. Had one for Carolina a couple of years earlier. Last year, you remember him in the wild card game, played well, and then played very well against the Giants. And in both contests, 2 total touchdowns, 1 mistake, and over 300 yards passing.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.